What's up? I'm so excited to be back here. Happy, what day is it? Tuesday. And I am really excited to hear what your feedback is from last week, when we officially talked about beliefs and your identity and stories and the things that are actually creating the results that we have based on our operating system. So we went over the beginning process of it, of starting to identify what does your current operating system look like, right? Like, and part of your operating system is your identity. So who you see yourself as. An example would be if I'm thinking about the Olympics, right? All the Olympians there, they see themselves as not only Olympians, right? But they also see themselves as athletes. And what do athletes do? They work out, they exercise, right? And when we can get to the root of how we see ourselves, how we identify ourselves as, we can decide, do we have an empowering identity? And maybe we do. And maybe we have some disempowering identities, such as I'm lazy, or I'm not motivated, or I suck, or I'm a failure. And when we have identities like that, let's say, for an example, we'll do the other side of it. So if someone identifies as being lazy, do you think it will be easier or harder for them to, let me just admit, Robin. Okay. Hey. Um, oh, I'm so glad I could see your face. Hey, Robin.
Hello, I'm going to turn it off though, because I'm moving around again. You can see my ceiling.
No worries. Um, I'm gonna put you on the spot again. I just was talking about something, but I'd love to hear a win from you if you are willing to share.
This week has gone so fast that I honestly feel like I haven't even really thought about it.
Hmm.
But we had some things going on this weekend, like a memorial and then friends over for the Super Bowl. So just not really able to plan out everything that I was eating. So despite that, I felt like I planned ahead as much as I could and what thought I was going to be having, and still was close, but
Yeah.
not completely within my macros, and but still felt okay about that because I it was just a different situation and I did the best that I could with it.
I love that. And can I ask you before, how would you have maybe shown up in a weekend that there wasn't as much planning, or maybe some things that you didn't have control over? How would you have shown up differently?
Oh, I just probably wouldn't have tracked it at all.
Okay. So that is a huge win then, Robin, that you still continued to track even when things were out of your control, even when you weren't 100% sure what was going to be available to you. You still tracked anyway.
Yeah, I was glad to do that.
Yay! That's awesome, Robin. Can I ask you one last thing? Because I'm
Sure.
so curious to see, like, what are the stories, because that's what we talked about last week and we're going to talk about today. I wonder if you took any notice to maybe some of the stories that maybe you were telling yourself that allowed yourself to still track the data even when you knew you weren't fully in control of your options and what that was going to look like.
I think that I just heard what you say all the time about I'm just collecting the data.
Yeah.
It's just numbers, it doesn't need to have any emotion associated with it.
Yeah. That's awesome, Robin. You're really becoming the scientist, right? Because
I'm
scientists,
trying.
I love that. And it's like it doesn't happen overnight, and it definitely takes some time, and that's totally fine if there is still any like charge to the feeling when you see a certain number. But the
Right.
more that you keep practicing it, the easier it does become. And that charge doesn't become so electric where before it would have you not tracking at all and then maybe
Hmm.
saying like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat whatever. Right.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
So that's awesome. Yay, Robin. That's actually a really huge win. It's funny how like our brains can sometimes downplay things or maybe not see like the progress that we're making because of just the way our brains are wired. And so what you're doing, Robin, is you're rewiring it and you're creating new pathways that are really serving you and serving you
Yeah.
well.
Thank
Yay,
you.
yeah, awesome. Um, One of the things that I was just talking about before you hopped on was just how important our identity is and how we view ourselves. And I was referring to Olympians. I'm thinking about the Olympics. And one of the identities that the Olympians have is they see themselves as an Olympian. And most Olympians, most likely, will also identify as they are athletes. And when you identify as an athlete, what do athletes do? They exercise, they work out. And so when we have an identity that is empowering, one that we want to have, our actions will always be in alignment for most of the part with the identity that we view ourselves as. And so I was sharing on the other side of the coin, we can also have disempowering identities, disempowering thoughts and stories about how we view ourselves. And so, one of the ones that I would hear a lot when I worked in healthy weight management, specifically helping create exercise programs for my patients, a lot of their identity who struggled with consistent workouts, they saw themselves as lazy. And I heard a lot of times, well, I'm lazy, I'm lazy. And when you identify as being lazy, and it could be lazy in different areas, that it's going to be so much harder to exercise or be consistent with exercise because you have this story, disempowering story that you're lazy. And so that is one of the reasons why I love talking about creating curiosity with compassion when it comes to making decisions and the stories that you're telling yourself in order to make those decisions and the actions that you take or don't take. And it all comes down to your operating system, right? And the thing about the operating system of stories and beliefs and your identity is that you can't see it. It's not something that you can see. So it's almost like when someone might have something in their teeth, right? And the only way that you might know that you have spinach in your teeth are two ways, right? You either one, look and see it in the mirror, or two, someone tells you, hey, you have spinach in your teeth. And so what I am doing is teaching you how to identify the spinach in your teeth. And one of the ways that we can do that is through the language that you're using. And as a coach, what I do is when I hear you guys talk or when you post in the community, I can look at the language you're using and I can start to see what's behind your operating system. What are the stories that you're telling yourself? And then what's really cool is that you can also start to learn how to hold up the mirror for yourself. And you can start to learn the process of how do you identify those limiting beliefs that we have, right? How do we identify the stories that aren't serving us anymore? How do we identify the identities that aren't empowering? And we talked about last week, we talked about creating curiosity as well as having compassion for yourself because blaming yourself and feeling and shaming yourself is never going to create change. But what will create change is curiosity and just getting curious when you're making decisions. And it doesn't even have to just be health and fitness. I love to do this in all areas of my life, especially in areas where I find that I'm complaining the most about. And then I start to get curious as to, okay, what are some of the things that are coming up for me? What are some of the stories that I'm telling myself? Um, one of the things with when I wanted to really work on my relationship with Kevin, one of the stories that, and I think I shared this before, one of the stories I kept saying is that Kevin never respects my time. Kevin never respects my time. And so that was a story that I kept telling myself. And then my brain, what your brain does, it's always seeking out patterns to make sense of the world. And that keeps you safe, right? That makes your brain feel safe. And so when you focus on a thought without even knowing it, your brain is searching for proof to make that true, to make you then feel safe. And so it was really easy for me to always look for ways like he didn't empty the dishwasher. Oh, he doesn't respect my time. Oh, he is using hairspray and now the hairspray is all on the toilet and it's making it harder for me to clean. He doesn't respect my time. Oh, his dirty laundry is out. He doesn't respect my time. Do you see my point? And so what we want to do is we want to start to create awareness of what is our current operating system and do we have to make updates? And the answer is always going to be yes. Okay. And it's just because we're human. And that is the way that our brains are wired. It's not good or bad. It's not that we're doing anything wrong. It's just taking a look at what is still working for us and then really what's no longer serving us. Because I love the quote, what got you here isn't what's going to get you there. So there is always a benefit to the beliefs that we hold on to, even if they're not beliefs that we want. And that was hard for me to swallow. I was like, nah, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would I hold on to a belief that's disempowering me? Why would I hold on to a belief because of the belief of Kevin doesn't respect my time because I know that it's not serving me? Well, the reason why I held on to that is because it was familiar. It's what I knew. And even though it was uncomfortable, it was the devil I knew versus the devil I didn't know. And for me to change that belief, my brain, even though logically I'm like, yeah, I want to change it. Yeah, I want to change it. Subconsciously, because our brain is wired for survival, our brain is going to do what it can to avoid discomfort and to avoid pain because it is going to be uncomfortable changing a belief. Your brain is constantly seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And if it's going to pick between the two, it will always avoid pain over anything else. And so changing a belief is going to be very uncomfortable. And I'm sure you guys, like Robin said, like you're already starting to feel that. But hopefully you're also getting the benefits, starting to see the benefits of it as well to continue to go. Because yes, creating change is uncomfortable, but what do I always like to say? We can do hard things, and you've done so many hard things in your life. And so just because something's uncomfortable does not mean that means you're incapable of. It just means that you're still learning and you're growing, and change takes time. So we're going to continue with, let me share my screen here. We're going to continue with the next part. So we talked about the first step is identifying really where we're at. And that is more than half of the work, which is really cool. Let me see why I'm trying to hit play here. Let me move this down. Um, so half of the work is identifying the current belief that you have or the current identity that you see yourself as. Like a great way to distinguish like, well, your identity, what does that even mean? Anything that you start with I am. I am brave. I am strong. I am weak. I am a failure. I am compassionate, right? Anytime that we start with I am, that is part of your identity. That's how you see yourself. This was just the, hold on. Why is that? There we go. Those were just quotes from yesterday or last time. So, what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to now, after we start to identify a limiting belief, a belief that we don't want to have anymore, one that we identified. And if you haven't already, that's okay. Sometimes it takes some time. And that's where journaling can really, really be a useful skill because your brain has the answer. Your brain already knows it, but your ego, which is part of the brain, that's the part of the brain that keeps you safe. That's part of the brain that is the guardian. guardian of your knowledge, guardian of the mind, and it's going to try to do everything to keep you from figuring this out. But you are smarter. It's almost as smart as us, but we are smarter. And so if you find that it's taking you a little bit longer, that's okay. And especially if this is a whole new concept, when I first learned this, I was like, what the F does this even mean? And I was very confused and I was really, really bad at it at first. But, and especially like really deep limiting beliefs, they're a little bit harder to find. But with time, it gets easier. So give yourself some grace and compassion when doing this process. And also, it's not going to happen overnight. I remember thinking, oh, I found this limiting belief that I have that like I can't maintain my weight. Oh, this is great. I know I have this awareness. Now I'm just automatically going to wake up the next day and I'm just going to automatically maintain my weight. That's not how it works, unfortunately. But half of the work is identifying that belief. So that's always such a great first step. So then the next step is you want to refute the limiting belief. Okay. So that means you just gotta have to start poking holes in this belief. And what I mean by that is you have to start to see the lies that are in this belief. And actually, now that I see the word belief, there's lie and belief. So there we go. So we start poking holes in that because for something to be true with a capital T, there can't be any exceptions. Okay. So this can be sneaky because there can be some truths that are mixed in. So those beliefs can be a little bit trickier. But remember, you're smarter and you'll be able to start to poke through those holes. So if it feels super, super true, I really encourage you then to put the belief on a loved one. And if it sparks a lot of emotion, and for me, there was a lot of tears, especially when I put them on my children, especially around beliefs that I started looking at that were a little bit deeper in of not feeling enough. I would put that on my children and automatically, like, I would just start to bawl because I'm like, I never want my kids to ever feel like they're not enough. I don't ever want my kids to give up on their dreams just because they become a parent. And so some of these beliefs, taking time for myself, investing in myself, when I put those on my kids, it was like, oh my gosh, no, like I always want my kids to invest in themselves, whatever that looks like for them. And I always want them to know that they matter and they chase after their dreams, right? They believe in themselves. And so when something feels super true, you can put that belief in a loved one. And if you feel that emotion coming up and if there's tears, that is totally normal. And that's an indication of you're starting to see some of the lies in that, right? Because for something to be 100% true, there can't be any exceptions. And so if you're making an exception for a loved one, then you know that it's just a belief, okay? And when we know it's just a belief, then we know that a belief is a thought that we have. And it's a thought that has been repeated, 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 either by us or by other people, or coming from social media or music or movies that we watch, and we just heard the same belief over and over, the same story over and over again until we then actually believed it. And then that's when it was stored in the subconscious part of our brain. And then that's how we make our decisions. 95% of them, which is so wild still to me. It still fascinates me. So once you start poking holes and you start to see the lies in the belief that you're holding, so we know it's not true, it's not, if it has exceptions, then we know it's not true, then we know it's a belief. And then you can start to ask yourself, well, what is it going to cost you if you continue to hold on to this belief? And you can ask yourself, well, if I keep holding on to this belief that maintaining my weight is hard or impossible, well, if you continue to hold on to that for the next 6 months, what is that going to cost you? Right? Most likely you're not going to maintain your weight because if you have a belief that it's hard or it's not possible for you, that is the reality that you will create for yourself because whatever you focus on will grow. And I love the example of when you are thinking about buying a new car And for me, it was, I don't know, I'm not even a car person, but I always just knew. I just knew what next car I wanted for some reason. And when I got my like mom car, I always wanted a Ford White Explorer. That is just what I wanted for some reason. And when we were thinking about buying one, I saw them everywhere. Like everywhere I went, there was a Ford White Explorer. And so what was happening is because I was focusing a lot of my attention on a Ford White Explorer, that is the reality that I created for myself. Then I saw them everywhere. And so what you focus on will grow. And so if you continue to focus on a belief that isn't true, that isn't serving you, you can start to ask yourself, well, oh my gosh, what reality am I going to create for myself in the next 6 months? Like, what is that going to look like? If I keep holding on to this for the next year, what is that going to look like? The next 5 years. And so you can go on as deep as you need it to be for it to get really, really painful. And remember, your brain is going to avoid pain as much as it can. And so when your brain can start to now really see the cost of it and writing it out and envisioning it, again, your brain can't distinguish between reality and imagination. That's why you're able to, when you think about this, when you think about something that you don't want anymore and you envision it, right? You visualize it, it sparks a lot of emotion, right? And if it's something you don't want, it sparks uncomfortable emotions. And so this is part of the breaking down of the belief that you don't want anymore because you have to assign a lot of pain to it. You have to put yourself where if you hold on to this belief, where will you be 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? It could be even 10 years from now. Um, and so this is going to help start to create a lot of discomfort. So, if you notice like any tears with any of your beliefs when you find, especially the deeper you go, and remember, growth is like peeling back an onion layer. So our brain is only really going to uncover things of what we're capable of taking on at the time. So when I first started, my belief started with perfection and knowing that I didn't have to do this perfectly. And that was a belief that I could start on at that level. And then as I started moving through, I went deeper and deeper into perfectionism and deeper into the self-worth and self-love. But I would have never been able to touch on that 3 years ago because that version of me wouldn't have been able to handle it. And so you're gonna see you're only going to get the things that you're ready to work through, the ones that you're capable of uncovering. And so if you notice, like there's going to be some beliefs that might feel a little bit easier or less painful, and then you might find some beliefs that are just like really triggering, and really like comes with a lot of emotion. That's gonna look a lot different. Normally, that's some sort of sign of just like an unhealed wound, from childhood or your past experiences. Which, side note, I'm really, really excited. I have a friend that I met. She does a lot of like trauma healing work. And we met the other week and she did an exercise with me, and it was the most amazing exercise. And I felt so much lighter. I worked through some wounds that I needed to heal. And so she so graciously accepted to come onto my podcast. So I'll make sure I send out when that, I'm sure I'll air it sooner than later because I'm just really excited for that. So anyways, I kind of went off on a little tangent, but that's okay. All right. So you might be wondering, and I kind of just covered this a little bit, but it's repetition is the mother of all skill. Okay. So why are they so hard to let go of? Well, because we believe them. And if we didn't believe them, we wouldn't hold on to them. So that's why they're so darn hard to let go of, especially the ones that are really deeply embedded in us, especially the ones that we've had for a really, really, really long time, the ones that most likely we developed when we were children. And so there is a reward that our brain does get from keeping this belief. And I always get ahead of myself. But really because our brain is wired for survival. And so it's us staying in our comfort zone. And when we don't let go of a belief, when we hold on to a belief that we really believe is true, it keeps us in our comfort zone and it's going to keep us safe. And it's better the devil we know versus the devil that we don't. And so but when we can let go and we can let in, which that was a hard thing for me to really understand is like surrendering, because I was so it was really hard to let go of some of the beliefs that I had that were really ingrained. But I found that the quicker that you can surrender and let go, the quicker that we can let in, and we can let in new beliefs, and we can let in new stories, and we can let in new identities that are going to be so much more empowering. And this is where we take our power back and we step into our power. We step into the person that we have always meant to be. We step into that higher version of ourselves. And the monkey and the banana, it was always a great metaphor that I liked when I first started learning about this. And this is actually true on how they'll catch monkeys. So they just have to put a banana in a cage, and the minute they put their hand on the banana, the cage will fall down, and then they're trapped, and their hand is trapped. And if the monkey just would let go of the banana, it would be able to then free themselves from the cage, and then they would have all of these other bananas available to them. But because they're holding on so tightly, they're attaching themselves to this belief, they can't let it go. And so then they keep themselves caged in. And that's what I've learned, that how so many of these limiting beliefs, even though they're not our fault that they were put on us, but when we continue to choose to believe them and accept them as truth, we're creating our own cage, like the monkey. And once we can start to chip away at the lies and refute that and come up with a better belief that better serves us, is the quicker that we can break out of the box that we created for ourselves. And yeah, that was a really hard lesson. And I'm still learning that. Still learning that. I can find that I still box myself in some of the areas of my life. And so it's a work in progress. And that's really how growth works. It's a work in progress. Perfection is never needed. And if we can view this as an experiment, I kind of started viewing life as like the game of life, right? Like when we play the game of life, and it can be fun, right? And there are challenges that come up. But if we start to make our own rules and we start to create change in our own lives, it just changes everything in the way that we show up. So, yeah, so we want to let in a new belief. So when we can let go, the quicker we can let go. So the quicker, because you might be asking, well, how long does this take, Emily? I can't give you a timeline, but what I can say is the quicker you let go of the belief, and the quicker you can let in a new one will be the quicker that you're gonna be able to move through it. And you start to think of a new belief, one that is empowering and that will serve you. And my mentor calls it an ego death. So when we decide to finally surrender and let go so we can let in, he calls it an ego death. And I kind of like it. It's a little extreme, but I just like, I envision that. It's like, because when I think about like a caterpillar. And when a caterpillar transforms into this beautiful butterfly, really what happens? It builds a cocoon, right? And so there is a death to the caterpillar, but then through the transformation, there's a rebirth. And that's really how I envision growth. And there's a rebirth to it. So I might get a little woohoo, but that's okay. All right, so you want to think of one that is more empowering, that will serve you. And you can always test it out. So there might be some that you're like, I don't really know, Emily. Like, I don't know an empowering belief that would better serve me. And so you can always, sometimes what I did was, I might even have it it might be in a PDF too of like some affirmations that I've included. I know I have that. I'll have to look for it. But you can start to see maybe like what are some empowering affirmations around maybe food or fat loss or self-worth or your results will take the time they take, like things like that that you can start to just play with. Um, yes, I do believe that it can be helpful to like maybe hear it from other people and try theirs out. But what I found the most empowering ones are the ones that come from you. And so, and it's okay, like, especially if you're newer at this, I borrowed a lot from my coach, some things that she would say. And it helped a lot. And then as I got more skillful, because this is really a skill, as I refined my skill, now it's easier for me to come up with my own. And so just test it out and see if it lands, right? This is you being the scientist and experimenting and seeing if a thought lands or not. And when you come up in the situation, which is really, really cool, like when you're in it with something that comes up, maybe, um, something unexpected comes up and you were going to eat this meal, you already pre-logged it, but you are going to make a choice to do something differently. And if there's something that comes up for you, when you decide to go off plan and you have a disempowering thought that comes up, you can then like test that out and you can see, oh, well, what could I say here? Right? Like, it's okay to pivot, right? I'm choosing this, like this is my choice. Instead of like, why is this happening to me, right? Belief. And so you can just test it out and see if it lands. And it's always really, really good when you're not in it, right? Because when we're in it, we are dysregulated, we're reacting. And so when we can come up with a belief or a thought that we're going to practice when we're not in it and when we're intentional, when we're using our logical part of our brain, it's going to serve us so much better. And so this is why I really encourage writing it out and doing some sort of journaling, so you can write out your plan because what you focus on will grow. And when you write out your plan and you see it, you're going to be more likely to show up and do it. And so um, write it down. Write down when you start to figure out your belief, write down then the new one. And repetition is going to be your biggest ally, right? So just as we have disempowering beliefs, which have happened with time, with a repeated thought or story, it works the other way as well, right? So if we know that beliefs are stored through repetition, right, and with time, then we know that we can create new beliefs and new stories with the same thing, with repetition and time. Um, and what happens when we do that, and that's why I say repetition is the mother of all skill, is you get to create new neural pathways in your brain. And that does take time to create them. And what's going to happen, and you're going to see this from time to time, and it happens for me, it happens for everyone, is that new version of you. So if you're going from Emily 1.0 to Emily 2.0, you're going to see that Emily 2.0 is going to pop up in different times. Okay. But then you're also going to see Emily 1.0 still popping up from different times. And the goal is to not just have Emily 2.0 just show up right away and here she is. That's not how it works. What we want is we want Emily 2.0 to show up more frequently and to continue to show up more frequently until eventually, with time and repetition, giving yourself grace and compassion, doing the work, the inner work, the messy work, journaling, getting curious, compassionate with yourselves, figuring out what is the belief, testing out new ones, right? Doing that work, you're eventually then going to create those new neural pathways, but it will take time. And so, um, if you're like feeling discouraged at all, and you will, there are going to be times in your journey that like you're just nailing it and you're just cruising, especially when you're in a cut and you're getting that dopamine hit from the numbers coming down, which is fantastic. Like ride that as long as you can, but there are going to come times where maybe your results aren't going to look like that you thought they would, or that it's taking a little bit longer to get to where you thought you were going to be by now. And so just giving yourself a lot of grace and just allowing yourself time, messy action, and knowing that your results will take the time that they take, and change doesn't happen overnight. And that's something that I have to tell myself too. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, right? And when you're learning all of these new skills, you didn't get your degree overnight, right? It took some time, it took messy action, it took practice, it took developing those new skills. Okay. And so when we can shine light on our own darkness is when we can start to create change and heal from old wounds. That was coming from Brene Brown's book. I love Brene Brown. She is such a queen. I know I talk a lot about her, but she's such a queen in how she has shown me such a different way to live my life. But when we really can see, shine light on the darkness in our own selves, right? Like the things that feel hairy, scary, the things that feel so uncomfortable to even touch upon, is when we can really start to create change and we can heal from those old wounds. And it changes the way you show up and the way you show up in life. And so, and I know it's uncomfortable. My goodness, there's still so many things in my life that I'm like, I really don't want to take a look at this. I really, really don't. It is so uncomfortable. And so I've now over time have developed a belief that if it's uncomfortable, and it feels really scary, that means I need to take a look. That means that this is an area in my life that there's something here that I need to uncover. There's something here that I need to shine a light on. Because most of the time, when we shine a light on something that feels really hairy and scary to us, when we can do that and we can own where we're at, it's like, oh, okay. Well, that's not as scary as what it felt like. That wasn't as scary as what I envisioned. And I actually see this a lot with my kids. Um, when Benny started basketball a couple weeks ago, and he was going to his first game ever. He's 6. And so in the car ride over, I could tell that he was kind of nervous. And he told me he was scared. And I was like, "What are you scared of, buddy?" And he's just like, "Well, I'm scared that he struggles with some sensory things, and he had dry skin, and it was a whole battle. Not a battle. Well, yes, a little bit of a battle getting him in the car and wearing his uniform. And he had this fear that he was going to be really itchy and then he was going to have to itch himself. And he was going to be embarrassed if he had to like itch himself in front of people at his basketball game, and especially being in a new basketball game. Like he's never done this before. So there was like a lot of things that he was coming up for him with fear. And so we just kind of like brought some lightness to it. And we're like, okay, well, that's normal. Like when fear comes up, one of the things that we do as humans as we try to avoid it and push it away. But what I wanted to show him is I wanted him to just like acknowledge it and say, okay, like your feelings are valid. And that's okay that you're having this fear. And so we kind of just had as much as I could with a 6-year-old, like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, you have to itch yourself. Okay. Um, and so when he went to his game, and I think he itched himself like once or twice, but like it was fine. And I asked him about the game after, and it was like no big deal. He's like, yeah, that wasn't a big deal. And so my point to this is that a lot of times when we're in it and fear is coming up for us, most of the time it's not going to be as scary as what we envision it to be. And that doesn't mean, so just because it's not going to really be as scary as what we envision it, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be uncomfortable. And so the more that you can tolerate the discomfort to change and to doing new things will be the quicker that you're going to be able to work through it, and the more success that you'll have. So let me see. Oh, and I love this, ordinary courage. This is to lead with your heart. This is another Brene Brown that she talks about ordinary courage. And my mentor, I remember him sharing how we naturally will get like just a couple courage spikes throughout the year. I think it's like, I was like three. It was something crazy like that. And it's like when you decide that you're really motivated, you want to try something new, and then you go for it, right? And then like you start to see, like you start to make the changes, and then fear comes up, and then self-sabotage happens, right? All those mental blocks. And then it can like, we just stop and we can self-sabotage for a really long time. Well, when you decide to look for ways to be courageous every day, you create more courage spikes in your life. And think about this, like the more courage spikes that you have in your life, right? If you're having more courage spikes, so that means you're going to have more momentum. And when we have momentum, that leads to more consistent habits and action, which then will lead us to the results that we really want. Think about how that can really affect our life. And so having this ordinary courage really means to lead with your heart. And what that means is just to be honest and vulnerable with yourself and also with others. And I have to give so much credit to you ladies for posting in the community. That is something that I know takes ordinary courage, and not even just posting questions for yourself, but also when other women are posting questions and then you're sharing your response to that. That also takes ordinary courage because you're allowing yourself vulnerability. You're allowing yourself to be seen and to be heard. And that takes a lot of courage. And so, whenever I'm in a community, especially bigger ones that I've been in, I've gotten really uncomfortable. And then I knew, oh, okay, this means that I should be doing this. And it's really helped just accelerate the change that I want to create in my life. And so I really, really commend all of you for taking that ordinary courage and just sharing what's on your heart. And the more that you can really be open and honest with yourself and vulnerable, which I know can be really uncomfortable. Um, for me, growing up in a household that being vulnerable and sharing your feelings and emotions was not okay because it wasn't, I didn't grow up in an environment that like felt safe for my parents because they didn't grow up in an environment that way, and so they didn't know how to handle my sister and my big feelings. It was very uncomfortable for them, and so when I started doing this inner work and I started working with mentors and joining communities, it was really, really uncomfortable for me to take those action steps and to share what's really on my heart. And I remember the first time that I even talked in a community and I was like sweating, my heart was pounding. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did I say?" And my friend and I were in it together. And so we would text each other and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Annie, how like nuts did I sound? Like what did I?" And she's like, "Emily, you made complete sense. You didn't ramble, but I felt like I did. Like I was so like fear was like at its highest and and vice versa for her." But the more that I did it, the more that I took those uncomfortable steps, one, I got incredible value out of it. And two, I was building ordinary courage, which allowed me to have more courage spikes in my life throughout the year. So, yeah, so that's why I wanted to share that. I know that really is a little bit different from like focusing on health and fitness, but it also plays such a big role in your health and fitness. And when it comes to wanting to reach certain goals, having ordinary courage is absolutely needed to do that. And so, the best question that you could ask yourself is, how can I be courageous today? And again, that's the ordinary courage. That's not the courageous that it takes to be, like a firefighter, like hopping into a burning building, right? Or a police officer, like chasing down someone. But it's really just like, how can I be courageous today? How can I be vulnerable with myself? And maybe that's you taking the first step and looking and getting curious with yourself to see like what's my current operating system, right? Like what are the stories that I tell myself every day? And and it's okay if it leads you in different ways. If it leads you in other areas in your life, right? In areas of parenting, in areas of your career. Like don't let that stop you just because if it doesn't always come up with your health and fitness goals. This is a tool, these are fundamentals that you can utilize in other parts of your life as well. So just take a look and say, like, this is an area I complain a lot about in. What are some of the stories that I'm telling myself? Or when you notice an action that you take that isn't an action that you really want to take, right? It's like, okay, pause for a second and start to see like maybe even take a step outside and try to picture just looking at your body and seeing like what are the actions that I'm doing, right? And then you can start to ask yourself, well, what are the stories that I'm telling myself? What do I believe is true here? And yeah, it takes time. It's uncomfortable. I think I have told you guys before, just allow yourself to be bad at it in order to be good, and you'll be just fine. And one of the things, I'll wrap this up here because I could go on and on and on, and I could go off on a lot of different tangents because I just love growing and learning more and more about myself. And I encourage you guys to do the same because this is really, that's the work, is really to get to know yourself more. Um, but one of the things that I found really, really powerful thing to do is meditation. And I'll do a meditation with you in one of the trainings. I think that might be coming up. I don't want to like throw out too much stuff like right away where it's like, oh, this is really overwhelming, Emily. This is way too out of my wheelhouse. But we will do a meditation. And I found that meditation, one, that's another thing, like you can be really bad at it first in order to be good. When I first did my meditation, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want, like, I don't want to be thinking about anything. I want to focus on this, but then I'm focusing on all these other things. And so it's really just a practice. It's a skill that you develop over time. And I'm still practicing it. My mind wanders every time I meditate and then it comes back eventually. But I found a lot of usefulness out of that, especially when there's a belief that's coming up for me that feels really hairy and scary. It's called heart mind coherence meditation. And that's what we'll be doing. I can't remember when I have that planned. It's coming up at some point though. That actually, maybe I wonder if that's the last one that we do. I can't remember. But and so I go on YouTube and I pick a heart mind coherence meditation, and I will take a belief that feels really hairy and scary, or one that feels really electric. Like if you would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, like if you had a belief that like maintaining your weight is impossible, or maintaining your weight is really hard. Like I would have rated that as probably a 10. Like that felt so true because I've never been able to maintain it before. And I would put my hand on my heart, I would do some deep breathing, and I would focus first I would have the thought, the story, right? The belief. I'd write that down. Then I would start to do my deep breathing. I like the box breathing. I'll do like 4 counts in, 5 count hold, and 6 count release. Or you can do 4, 4, and 4. It really doesn't, as long as you're just getting that like breath in, hold, and out, that helps you to just focus on your heart space, slow down your breathing, help self-regulate if you need to regulate, especially when fear is coming up, right? We're out of regulation, we're dysregulated. So the breath really helps calm you, regulate you. And then having your hand on your heart also will help you focus, right? Whatever you focus on will grow. So you put your hand on your heart space, your heart, your chest, and that will also help you to just focus on your heart because your heart and your brain are, when we can have them work together, it's so much easier to get through these disempowering beliefs. And so when you think about your heart, like your heart is like what you know is to be true. Like that's who you are. That's where like all of the, if you believe in source, universe, God, like that's where they are in there. And so when you take a belief that feels scary, something that you're fearing, right? As we're focusing on the heart, you can focus it on the brain and you can envision this belief that you have that isn't serving you anymore. And you can see it like drop down and you drop it in your heart. Because when you think about your heart, that's like where the truth is. Like that's where the true you is. And if you've ever heard of acceptance speeches, right? I'm sure like a lot of the Olympians, when they talk about their success, they're not going to be like, "Oh, I'm so glad I led with my brain," right? Like, they're really like they're grateful that they listened to their heart. They're so grateful that their heart led them. And actually, the Olympian skater, American skater who just won, she said her superpower was her heart, which she definitely must do mind heart coherence for sure. And so it's a really great practice to help you, especially when beliefs feel really, really electric. If the meditation part, like if that feels a little too uncomfortable for you yet, that's okay too. You can just continue practicing journaling. And if the journaling part is too uncomfortable and you just talking, out loud or in your head and having that conversation first is okay to start with, that's okay too. So I'm just kind of giving you different layers of different ways that you can get yourself immersed in this. But when you get to the point with the meditation, it's really, really helpful. And it just like through the breathing itself, right? Like when you're putting your hand on your heart and you're breathing, you're regulating your body. And so many of us were never taught how to regulate our emotions. And as I'm teaching you to become the scientist and to make your decisions based on data and not emotion, part of that's what's going to help you is to regulate. And when you're doing the meditation, the breath work, you're learning how to regulate your nervous system. And so that's a whole other topic. But one of the trigger words for me when I knew that I was in dysregulation is when I use the phrase "I'm done," or when I start to get irritable, right? When I start to get irritable around like if my kids, my dog, my husband, or even myself, I'm like, "Ooh, okay, this is a sign that I'm in dysregulation." And so when we get to that point, the breathing, the heart mind connection, hand on heart, doing the deep breathing, hold it, exhale, that's going to help you get back into regulation. And when we're not reacting, when we're not in dysregulation, we're able to make such better decisions that are really going to serve us. And I wish I would have known this inner work when I was first tracking my macros and learning with like the scale because I was in a lot of dysregulation when I would step on the scale. There was a lot of emotion tied to the scale and I wasn't even someone who even freaking weighed themselves. Like I never had a scale. My first scale I bought was when I first started tracking my macros and I did not realize how uncomfortable that was for me. And so doing like I would say the things like I'm a scientist collecting data, and that really helped. And that was like a meditation that I would just do right there. But if I would have taken a little bit more time and did some breathing, I think that would have served me even more on top of what I was doing. But I understand that like we're only ready for things when we get to a certain part. So I just like to throw that in there a little bit. If you're curious, if you've ever thought about that, if you see people on social media talking about doing heart-mind coherence, or self-regulating, things like that, this is a really great tool to use. And again, if you're really bad at it at first, that's okay. I was too. The first time I did a meditation, it was really uncomfortable, but I will say, I just thought about this yoga. Like, if you've ever done like yoga, Pilates, any of those classes, you're doing a lot of that mindfulness there. So, if you have any history of that, I think that actually helped me a little bit because when I took my first yoga class, it was really uncomfortable. I was super giggly because I was with my mom and my sisters. And because that was the first time I ever did mindfulness before. So, okay. Anyways, I did a little bit of a rant. I did that a little bit last week, and that's what happens. But let me see. Our next session will be next Thursday at 9:30 in the morning. So I'll make sure I send out reminders. Um, and then, yeah, keep posting in the community, keep sharing wins, any struggles. I love the discussion. I will tell you, I think it might have been Aaron. Someone posted about like what are the meals for this week? Like what's everyone making? And actually I got inspired by some of the meals I'm making. I made chicken crack today, or I'm making that. And that was Taylor who said she did that. But yeah, so like even when we just see stuff like that, when we see, we can be inspired. And so yeah, keep posting in the community. I love it. And then yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Robin, because you're on right now still, do you have anything? It's okay if you don't, but like, is there anything that you want to talk through or work through, like any resistance mental blocks that are coming up for you?
No, I don't think so. I feel pretty
Okay.
good. I like the community as well. I actually asked for meal ideas because that's like a struggle for me. It's just one of those things that I actually like. I like cooking, but I just get so tired of the decisions.
Mhm.
So sometimes I'm good and I'm on a roll, and then other days I'm like, I have no idea. Nothing sounds good. I'm not making anything. We can find whatever's in the fridge. So yeah, that was
Decision
good.
fatigue, yes.
Yes, it's
Decision
a real
fatigue.
thing.
It is,
Yep.
yeah. And I get that way too. Like even though I have the tools, like, I know my like macro goals and all of that stuff, there are definitely times that like I'm not always at optimal with the
Hmm.
meals, and we're like, okay, we'll just grab some things in the freezer. So that's why it is nice to have like just some staples as you
Right.
better like with it. And sometimes it's just like bare minimum. Like I love chicken nuggets for dinner sometimes,
Hmm.
um, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Have a good
Yes.
day.
All right, you too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.